for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
On this week's episode of Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, we react to Bruce Arena's roster as the U.S. men's national team takes on Panama and Trinidad and Tobago in some of the biggest World Cup qualifiers in history. Doug Roberson, reporter for AJC, calls in to talk Atlanta United and their recent success at the Mercedes Benz Stadium. And finally, it's that time of the month again, guys. Our mailbag is open. We answer your questions. All this on this week's episode of Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. I'm Steven Jodderin, the one and only Armand Kafai on the line. What's going on? Coming off a fever, in fact.
Yeah, I'm surviving, guys. I'm surviving right now.
It's that time of year.
That time of the year where you get the flu and you get sick for a couple of weeks. So I'm surviving right now, but the show has to go on, man. The show has to go on.
And we got a programming note. Hey, U.S. men's national team has the two most important World Cup qualifiers coming up. So we're going to do a preview of both the games in one show, come out before Friday's game. That means Thursday, be on the Outlook. You'll have a little preview. And then following the game, or following the World Cup qualifying break, we will recap to you the games and give you our thoughts, especially if they don't qualify, or they do qualify, and we'll tell you what we think. But Armand, Bruce Arena dropped the roster on us this afternoon. And very interesting roster, to say the least.
I mean, is it really interesting or is it really just bland?
Very interesting that he absolutely did nothing to change the team since they've, took 1 point from 6 the last round about a month ago.
I mean, I don't blame him, but I do look at some of the inclusions in the roster, and I do scratch my head a little bit. I don't know if you do the same, but I do scratch my head a little bit.
Oh, absolutely do I scratch my head. I mean, let's start in goalkeeping, all right? Timmy Howard from the Colorado Rapids. Who else are you going to call up, right? Brad Guzan.
Yeah.
Atlanta United, sure. Nick Rimando. Really? Why doesn't he give it to a young kid there? What does Nick bring from Real Salt Lake? What does he bring to this 26-man roster?
I truly don't understand that reasoning. I feel like if you gave it to a younger player, I mean, especially if it's an international based player, maybe they're not even playing during that time, so why not maybe give the spot to him? I don't understand why it has to be Rimando. I mean, Rimando, he's 35? He has no future to the national team, and it's not like the third goalkeeper plays. So I mean, why not give it to someone that would take that experience?
Absolutely.
And who was it? Ethan Horvath. He's currently playing right now for Club Brugge in Belgium. He's starting. He actually started today against Ghent. Why not give the spot to him? Why not give a spot maybe to a Bill Hamid? Or Sean Johnson, or Jesse Gonzalez. Throw out some names out there.
I just don't
get it.
I don't get it either, because it's not like you have a captain. He's not a captain of the team. He's not somebody that the defenders or the midfielders can look up to gain experience. So you kind of have to scratch your head at that. I mean, honestly, Timmy Howard and Guzan, you don't have any better options. There's a reason why they get called up, because the other options aren't going to have the same experience. But why not give the experience of the third goalkeeping spot to one of these younger guys, so you can, hopefully get them to replace Howard and Guzan in the next, 6 to 18 months.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that sentiment. I mean, I don't see the point of keeping those guys. I mean, after this next World Cup cycle, we're gonna be looking for a new goalie. Let's be honest here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've been looking for a new goalkeeper probably since the last World Cup. If we're actually going to sit here and really break down the roster, it's just there hasn't been a stud that's really, that diamond in the rough that's really started to shine in the recent, 6 to 18 months. So it's been Howard. Regardless of his play, he had that. Remember, he took time off. Right, exactly. That sabbatical, kind of like what Donovan did. Yeah. And luckily for Howard, the job's still open and he got it. All right, but moving on to the defense, which was a huge issue for the national team, especially against Costa Rica. Gaping holes everywhere. You got Cameron, Gonzalez, Beasler, Villafania, Yedlin, who is coming off the injury, Zusi, Tim Ream, Beasley, and Michael
Orozco Vasca. Yeah. We're looking at this lineup. I mean, without John Brooks, you're going to be limited, and we saw Beasler come off a little late in the SKC game, so that's still kind of up in the air. I mean, outside of that, is there any, I don't think there's any surprises, Steven. I mean,
no.
It seems like a relatively routine roster.
I mean,
defensive group.
Sure. Fabian Johnson, do you lump him in as part of this? As a defender?
I mean, it depends what system you want to run. Let's say you run how we've been clamoring for a 3-back line. I mean, I feel like Johnson fits perfectly into that left wing back role. At left back, do I think he might be better than some of the options that the United States have now? Honestly, I'd probably say yes. I feel like he is a better option than some of the players the United States has right now. That's kind of scary.
No, I agree. Besides him, that's the only player that I can think of that's missing. But Cameron, yeah, he's a stud, but he's important to Stoke City, so of course he's going to get Gonzalez, experienced, Beasler, somewhat experienced, but Yedlin might be the bright spot. He might bring something to the squad that you didn't see last round of World Cup qualifying. The question is, how healthy is he and how much is he going to be able to play?
No, absolutely. I mean, hopefully we get to see him play. We won't see the absolute mediocrity that Graham Zusi is. That would be a blessing from the heavens to not see that right back role ever played by Graham Zusi again. But Yedlin providing that pace on the wing and that experience coming from now the Premier League and playing the championship for the team that not dominated, but won the championship in Newcastle. I mean, we've seen Yedlin play. He just provides a different spark to the United States that if he doesn't play, they don't have.
Yeah. No, and he brings something that I think could really aid Christian Pulisic in its more speed.
Oh yeah, he's such a pacey wingback. He's a fun pacey wingback to watch. He can track back on defense. You see Zusi, sometimes he'll get burned on long balls and whatnot. I saw that happen a couple times in the Gold Cup when they played Costa Rica in the semifinal. Yeah. I watched on the qualifiers as well. I mean, who was it? I think it was Kyoto for Honduras was just burning Zusi up and down the wing.
Oh yeah,
you have Yedlin on there. That's not an issue.
It's not an issue. The question, you got to ask yourself a lot is what is the mindset of Bruce Arena and why did he select these players? And it wasn't to surprise anybody. It was to qualify for the World Cup. So he went and got his most experienced players. But it's a little bit scary knowing that these are the most experienced players. And you look at these names: DeMarcus Beasley, Tim Ream, Graham Zusi, Matt Beasler. They're not eye-popping names. It's scary to know that this is the best defensive core that the United States has to offer at the moment.
Yeah, it is.
it's baffling. And, don't forget John Brooks, but John Brooks is hurt. So one player, that's it. Fabian Johnson, those are the two players that were left off. But Brooks is hurt. Johnson, who was terrible last World Cup qualifying, no surprise that he didn't come back. It's terrible. Midfielders, Kellen Acosta, Juan Agudelo.
Yeah.
What? Paul Arriola, Alejandro Bedoya, Michael Bradley, Benny Feilhaber, Dax McCarty, Darlington Nagbe, Christian Pulisic, and Zardes.
Who just withdrawed.
Yeah, and has had a terrible MLS season.
Yeah, Zardes being called up, I know a lot of people will try to rationale it by saying he played good, last year in qualifying. I don't like Zardes being called up. I feel like he provides absolutely nothing to this midfield. But knowing Bruce Arena, he would start if he would possibly start, or he'd definitely be the first option off the bench since Bruce loves Zardes 100%. But the one name that caught my eye and really threw me off had to be Agudelo.
You want to know his stats for 2017?
Spit some truth bombs on me.
All right. Games played, 26. Games started, 19. 8 goals, 1 assist. What? Why?
Yeah,
Why?
when he I think he was supposed to go to Stoke, but then he couldn't get a work permit, so they sent him on loan to a team in the Netherlands, and he kind of ever since then hasn't really picked back up his form.
He's still so young.
It's crazy to think about that.
He's only 24, and you feel like he is 34 with how often his name is associated with the national team.
Yeah, because these guys get associated so young, I feel like. And
did he not score against Argentina years ago? It was like he was like 17.
I'm not sure. I don't remember, to be honest.
I could have sworn that was him. Regardless, that's definitely that Juan Agudelo, Kellen Acosta. I get why, but he has been really poor of late,
and he's been injured.
Why doesn't he bring in Danny Williams?
Well, because Williams is injured too.
No, well, is he really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he is injured. Mm-hmm. But one name on this list I really like is the one you said, with a little bit of surprise and a little bit of joy, Benny Feilhaber. Now, maybe with this run of form he has right now, maybe it's a little more controversial. But I thought he should have been included in the roster a couple times when Klinsmann was in charge, and a few more times earlier in the arena days. But I really like Feilhaber because he does provide some creativity in the middle of the park, which we've come to learn that if it's not Pulisic, it's basically Dempsey or nobody. And the addition of Benny Feilhaber just provides some creativity that, like we've talked about before, the USA has been lacking over time.
Oh, for sure. Christian Pulisic. It's no surprise. Obviously, he gets called up. Like, if you weren't called up, we'd be screwed. But the Bruce Arena. The thing is with this roster. Before we get to the forwards, the most important part is the players are important. It's the system that Bruce Arena implements that's going to define how good this squad is. Because you saw the system work against Mexico, and then he scraps it, and it was an absolute failure against Costa Rica. And then in Honduras, up until Bobby Wood's goal, it would have been another disaster, right? So if Christian Pulisic is stranded on the flank again, what's that tell you? Does Bruce Arena not understand the game? Has it gone by him?
If you see Pulisic on the wing, I'd be surprised. I mean, it's a much different game, and we saw when he was isolated on the wing, lots of teams would bring multiple bodies into him and just clamor on